We begin today, dear friends, with the tragedy that continues to unfold in Texas. As of right now, outlets are reporting that 95 people have died in the flash floods in Texas. 95 people. And while we all in independent media continue to connect the dots between how a tragedy like this happens and how it is exacerbated by Donald Trump's policies, GOP leaders are on their cable news programs offering nothing more than thoughts and prayers. There's a lot more to do here than pray. And we, the people, have to decide that it's time to take action against this administration before more innocent people lose their lives and also lose their freedom. Because while Donald Trump has made cuts to the National Weather Service, to NOAA, he has now inflated his paramilitary forces to an astronomical amount of money, $175 billion, more than the militaries of I don't know, every other country except for China and the United States. That is where we begin today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I am so very glad that you are here. Let's get into it. All right, my friends. So let's get into the news today. So I want to start out with a important article that was at the New York Times. I have a love-hate relationship with the New York Times if you followed this show and you watched me earlier. But we start here. Officials feared flood risk to youth camps, but rejected warning system. Kerr County had discussed buying such things as water gauges and sirens after previous flood disasters. But as with many rural Texas counties, cost was an issue. 8 years ago, in the aftermath of yet another river flood in the Texas Hill Country, officials in Kerr County debated whether more needed to be done to build a warning system along the banks of the Guadalupe River. A series of summer camps along the river were often packed with children. For years, local officials kept them safe with a word-of-mouth system. When floodwaters started raging upriver, camp leaders warned those downriver of water surge coming their way. But was that enough? Officials considered supplementing the system with sirens and river gauges, along with other modern communication tools. Quote, we can do all the water level monitoring we want, but if we don't get that information to the public in a timely way, then this whole thing is not worth it, said Tom Moser, a Kerr County commissioner at the time. In the end, little was done. When catastrophic floodwaters surged through Kerr County last week, there were no sirens or early flooding monitors. Instead, there were text alerts that came late for some residents and were dismissed or unseen by others. The rural county of a little over 50,000 people in a part of Texas known as Flash Flood Alley contemplated installing a flood warning system in 2017, but it was rejected as too expensive. The county, which has an annual budget of around $67 million, lost out on a bid at a time to secure a $1 million grant to fund the project. County Commission meeting minutes show. As recently as a May budget meeting, county commissioners were discussing a flood warning system being developed by a regional agency as something that they might be able to make use of. But in a recent interview, Rob Kelly, the Kerr County judge and its most senior elected official, said that local residents had been resistant to spending. Quote, taxpayers won't pay for it, he said, adding that he didn't know if people might reconsider now. The fact is that money is the issue. And yet, friends, here we are. Texas flood, death toll reaches 95, including 27 at girls' camp. The search for unlikely survivors grew more desperate 4 days after one of the deadliest U.S. floods in decades. 10 campers and a counselor are among those still missing. The weary mayor of Caryville, Texas, warned residents to expect a, quote, rough week, as chances faded on Monday of finding anyone still alive from catastrophic flooding that killed at least 95 people across central Texas. 10 girls and a counselor were still missing from Camp Mystic, an all-girls Christian summer camp, which said at least 27 of its young campers and staff did not survive the surging waters from the nearby Guadalupe River. The Caryville mayor, Joe Herring Jr., said rescue crews would push forward with their searches, slashing through debris and down trees, even as they braced for the possibility of more downpours and flash flooding. Here's what we know, which is that this is an incident that should have never happened, right? And by that, I say that not that this flood alley doesn't flood. It was given that name for a reason. But the fact is that money should not prevent people from getting the help and aid that they need. I don't want to demonize the people for voting against taxes being raised when maybe I have no idea what the socioeconomic makeup is of that county. So I'm not going to presume that these are people that have disposable income that can say, yeah, we can, stomach more of our money going to taxes when you're trying to put food on your table, when you're trying to put medicine on your table. So don't take me posting about these things and saying that while people continue to vote against their best interests, it's all oftentimes because nobody is actually connecting the dots for them. I said this earlier on Democracy-ish, the video is up now with Waj, that Kerr County voted for Donald Trump 77%. It is a rural area with 50,000 people. 50,000 people who probably watch Fox News on a regular basis and have no idea, right, that these issues that happen to them in this region are going to be exacerbated because of climate change, that these actually are not acts of God. The water rose to the level of a 2-story building in an hour. So just put it this way. You get a text alert at 5 p.m. And within the time that you get the text alert and you are managing to scramble to get things together, to organize a camp filled with people, with children, then what happens? The time is ticking down. And as you're maybe loading people into buses, maybe you're saying, oh, well, maybe we can ride this out. The place floods and we can handle it. But you have no idea how severe this storm is going to be and how quickly things change in an instant. This is why warning systems are important. This is why investing in prediction models actually matter. The Department of Defense shut down NOAA's ability to access satellites that could show a rapid increase in storms in real time on June 30th. So these are not acts of God. They're acts of ignorance. They're acts of greed to a regime that wants to privatize the weather service so that maybe the rich get the ding on their phones about whether or not there's going to be a tornado or a hurricane that has changed from a category 1 to a category 4, but that everybody else who doesn't pay for that service is what, fucked? That's the future. And right now, what I find incredibly problematic is that as this was happening, Texas officials were blasting the National Weather Service for faulty forecast. What? They forecasted the weather based on the access to data that they had. The forecasting models are only good as the data that is provided. And when you are now operating with both arms tied behind your back and with a blindfold on, how the fuck are you supposed to predict how things are changing when you no longer have access to that information? So then what happens? Oh, well, dear friends, this. Mike Johnson says, well, why don't you take a listen to what his mealy mouth had to say?
Federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we'll handle supplemental funding requests as they come in, but right now they're still trying to do rescue and recovery.
I'm sorry, what? All we can do right now is pray? Is that right? That the representatives of Congress in the House and in the Senate are just as what? Helpless as everybody else? And of course, there's going to be no follow-up question there that says, didn't you all just chant USA, USA after passing a budget that decimated the National Weather Service and NOAA? How do you think that those cuts that you just applauded are going to contribute to the continued loss of life as we enter hurricane season? You see, but they go on these bullshit shows that amplify their bullshit gaslighting that would have you believe that all they can do is fall to their knees in the acts of fucking natural disasters. These are not natural disasters. They are climate disasters. That's the thing that we need to start saying. I just did an interview that will be up tomorrow on As the World Churns with a former NOAA employee who was fired, who said, these are not acts of God. And the people that write in the headlines, oh, these are once in 1,000-year storms, are talking about them based on a model that has the climate as static and stable. He's like, our climate is anything but stable or stagnant. It is wildly unpredictable and out of control because of the greenhouse gases we continue to pump into the atmosphere. And he's like, so these are not happening once in 1,000 years or once in a century storm. They're happening every fucking season. And so for this motherfucker to go on television and say that all we can do in this moment is pray, If you wanted to do nothing more than pray, then you should have gone to become a priest. You should have gone to fucking seminary instead of into Congress. Because you are a politician because people want fucking action and policies that actually help shape their lives for the better. If they want prayer, they go to fucking church. I am so sick to death of these people. I honestly am. At this point, I really just wish that they would shut the fuck up because they don't offer anything that is helpful to the American people. And as a matter of fact, this last week, they showed the American people exactly whose side they're on. The passing of that bill, the signing of that bill to chants of USA, USA, as tens of millions of Americans are going to be kicked off of healthcare, as you're literally taking food out of the mouths of hungry children, as Donald Trump cut subsidies to green infrastructure, to electric vehicles, also that he could give more money to big oil and big coal. And then you turn around, and when Donald Trump was asked, because he was fucking asked, are you going to be, I don't know, going to Texas to go, offer anything, any words of encouragement?
I'm planning to visit Texas, Mr. President. Probably on Friday. We wanted to leave a little time. I would have done it today, but we'd just be in their way. Probably Friday.
Be in the way of who exactly? Who exactly would you be in the way of? Because it's not as if you sent FEMA down there. You didn't send FEMA. You sent dog killer Kirsty Nome, Ice Barbie, Department of Homeland Security Secretary going down to go do what exactly? Cosplay? When have you ever heard of there being some type of environmental disaster and the person that is going down there is the Secretary of Homeland Security? How the fuck does that make sense? I'm telling you, I'm at a place, and I say this often, but I am truly at a place with these people where I have no fuse left. It's not even like I have a short fuse. It's that I have no fuse at all. And I'm waiting for the rest of America to catch up to where I have been for a good 10 years. So Alex Cole, person that I love to follow, but I rarely go on X except to cut a story, says, hey, Grok, how many people from NOAA and the Weather Service were fired, resigned, or offered retirement by DOGE? Grok, as of July 2025, reports indicate DOGE-led cuts at NOAA resulted in 800 probationary firings in February, with 1,000 additional departures via early retirements, resignations, and buyouts. For National Weather Service, part of NOAA, 550 total staff reductions since January, dropping below 4,000. Got it. And then there was this video from a few months ago of a Florida meteorologist who went on air and said he can't accurately report the weather anymore because Trump's DOGE cuts gutted the satellite data he relies on. We're not just defunding science, we're sabotaging public safety. And for what? So a billionaire surveillance firm can get another contract while Americans can't even get a hurricane warning on time? Take a listen.
The hurricane was heading here. And as you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I am not sure I can do that this year. because of the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind. And we may not exactly know how strong a hurricane is before it reaches the coastline, like happened a couple of years ago in Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. So I was asked to talk about this today. I'm glad I was. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped.
But the fact is that the cuts weren't stopped. The cuts have gone through. On July 4th, Donald Trump's tax breaks to the rich became permanent, as does his gutting of essential agencies and services that the American people rely on to be safe. And as people are saying in the chat, and as I've said many times over, this administration is, in fact, not just trying, but will be successful in killing us. Whether through the balloon budgets of ICE, that is now at $175 billion, more than any other military outside of the United States and China on the planet, that swore no oath to the Constitution, but are now just, in full-on mass and fatigues and kidnapping people off of the street. So instead of agencies like the National Weather Service or NOAA being funded because of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they said that, those jobs with those skilled workers, the ones that can read satellites and the meteorologists with 30 years of history and knowledge of particular areas of this country and around the world, they're all gone. And so is their institutional knowledge. We are literally being led out to slaughter, folks, by a group of maniacal, greedy bastards. And they applaud it. What to me is the most alarming. They don't have to hide. They don't have to care. And why is that? Because I have been saying over and over again, they're not worried about midterm elections because they know we ain't having them. They're not worried about midterm elections and upsetting their constituents because they know that they are going to die in those positions. They have jobs for life. You don't move the way that Republicans have been moving in lockstep with Donald Trump, seeing the polling and worrying about your own position if you weren't told that all will be okay. Because like I continue to say, Donald Trump has bolstered and now has a private military. He is waiting for the unrest to come to a boiling point, which it will, because I'll show you at the end of today's show what is unfolding right now in California. All of this, Alligator Auschwitz, all of these for-profit prisons, they're not meant to just hold the undocumented or the criminals. They're meant to hold all of the dissenters. They're meant to lock people into indentured servitude that will be the new slave labor force. Connect the dots, my friends. Connect the dots. That's what I'm here to do, so that folks aren't caught off guard. It's truly astounding. It's truly astounding. And to Holly, to your point, yeah, not everyone has a cell phone. Not everybody gets text alerts. We like to think that people do, but while this administration and Republicans love to talk about the inner city, they never really talk about the rural areas that have mirrored problems to those that exist in low-income urban areas, like access to broadband, access, right, to cell phones. I read you at the top. What were the people in the camp systems? What have they been doing? Word of mouth. Word of mouth to get from upstream of the Guadalupe River to downstream. How does that work when within an hour, flood levels reach a 2-story building? How do you communicate via fucking word of mouth in the midst of that kind of emergency? So, yeah, it's, and what I will continue to say, oh, and Daisy, yes, and overnight at that. But this all comes from someplace. And here is where it comes from. I want to show you this. The ideological dismantling of NOAA and the National Weather Service began on page 674 of Project 2025. Remember Project 2025? We used to talk about it ad nauseum. Trying my best to alert as many people as possible to the free PDF document that was on the Heritage Foundation's main page. Their 900-page document to undo America and install their dark-aged, undereducated, diseased, broke down, and hopeless version of America. And here is what they said. Together, these form a colossal operation that has become one of the main drivers of climate change alarm industry. This is them talking about NOAA and the National Weather Service. As such, is harmful to future U.S. prosperity. And what do they mean by future U.S. prosperity? They're talking about the coal industry and the oil industry and the ability of these industries to continue to lie to the American people and take no responsibility for the amount of polluting that they are causing that is increasing climate change. So rather than invest in, let's say, I don't know, green building and infrastructure and vehicles and what have you that are about thinking about and building for the future, they decided to just do away with science altogether. Just erase it. All so that they can make a fucking buck. This industry's mission emphasis on prediction and management seems designed around the fatal conceit of planning for the unplannable, because they'd rather fall to their knees and pray to their false idol, Trump, than they would believe in fucking science. That is not to say NOAA is useless, but its current organization corrupts its useful functions. It should be broken up and downsized. Well, bravo. They've broken it up and they've downsized it to the point of it being unmanageable. And right here, right now, we're at a place where children are dead. And the New York Times reported, and I reported yesterday on the New York Times, and I posted it. People in senior positions at the San Angelo office of the National Weather Service were gone. Their positions have been vacant since April, since they were fired or forced into retirement or to resign. The former NOAA employee that I interviewed today as the world churns, which will be up later tonight, said it's funny because as scientists, before we're providing a predictive model, we don't ask who people voted for. Before we send out an emergency alert, we don't ask you where your ideology falls because we don't give a damn. Our job is to try and save lives, or rather, it was. We are headed into yet another, as many like to say, historic hurricane season. And one can only imagine the tragedies that are going to unfold all over this country. Because, folks, it isn't just Florida. If you remember the hurricane that hit Asheville, North Carolina, that had never seen a fucking hurricane before, because, you know, it's in the mountains, is still devastated. And Donald Trump is not sending FEMA. As a matter of fact, when Biden did send FEMA to try and help, their operations were disrupted by the amount of lies that were being spread about FEMA, telling people not to talk to them, telling people not to take any type of aid because, oh, they'll take your house. And then guess what? The folks with guns went out and started hunting FEMA workers, you know, people that are there to help you because of all the lies that MAGA spread. So they don't have to worry about anybody coming to their aid. No, they're going to send Kristi Noem for a fucking photo op. Maybe they'll throw some toilet paper and paper towels out them too. A fucking disgrace. And while we're on the topic of disgrace, friends, Trump's Justice Department and FBI have concluded they have no evidence that Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. So, remember in February when Pam Bondi was testifying before Congress and said that she had the Epstein files on her desk? Remember when right-wing, I don't know, conspiracy theorists were coming out of the White House with binders that said Epstein files? Remember Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and others talking about how as soon as they got in to their positions in power when Trump won, that they were going to release the Epstein files because it was going to be filled with Democrats? Everybody remember that? Huh. Well, as it turns out, I guess Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's number 2, is serving 20 years to life because she was sex trafficking no one to nobody. Because apparently there's nothing to see here. Oddly enough, though, We all know Donald Trump was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. We all know that Donald Trump has spent money trying to scrub his name and image away from Jeffrey Epstein. We all know that that motherfucker is named in the Epstein files and that they can't release them because Mein Fuhrer would have their jobs. And so, what are they doing today in the midst of tragedy when all eyes are on Texas? Oh, by the way, there's nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. Case closed. You're telling me that the timing isn't convenient? Well, why don't we listen to Michael Wolff's, one of his many interviews, the author of Fire and Furies, interviews with Jeffrey Epstein on Donald Trump's first administration and what he thought about it.
We have a snippet from one of the conversations that I recorded with Epstein, and I think this was in a restaurant in 2017.
His people fight each other.
Right.
And then have outsiders. He sort of poisons the well outside. He will tell 10 people Bannon's a scumbag, and Priest is not doing a good job, and Kelly has a big mouth. And what do you think? Jamie Dimon says you're a problem, and I shouldn't keep you. And I spoke to Carl Icahn, and Carl thinks I need a new spokesperson. So Kelly, even though I hired Kellyanne's husband, Kellyanne is just too much of a wild card. And then he tells Bannon, I really want to keep you, but Kellyanne hates you.
I have more than dozens. I probably have 100 hours of Epstein talking about the inner workings of the Trump White House and about his long-standing, deep relationship with Donald Trump.
Hundreds of hours of his long-standing and deep relationship with Donald Trump. But in all the files, in all the records, there's nothing to see here, folks. Case closed. All of the things that MAGA had been spreading around the Biden crime family and all of the exposing that they were going to do, and Pam Bondi, who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and slap on the wrist in Florida, now with all the power of the Department of Justice behind her, could find nothing. Okay. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave us today, dear friends? We are in such we're in such crisis. I need a new word for crisis. The gaslighting has reached epic proportions. Donald Trump has been caught in multiple videos in his own fucking words talking about how him and Epstein had the same taste in girls because they're fucking pedophiles. Epstein had a huge, huge client list that included politicians, heads of state, royalty in Prince Andrew, and I'm certain others. Days before his death, Donald Trump's former attorney general goes for a visit to Epstein. Why? Why would the head of the Department of Justice, Bill Barr, why would Bill Barr need to go and visit Jeffrey Epstein? Someone tell me. If there was nothing, if he had no information, then Epstein wouldn't have been a problem. And America's #1 attorney wouldn't have been going to your fucking prison cell that was supposed to be on suicide watch and on video, but the guards disappeared that day, and as did the video cameras shut down. Do they think we're stupid? Make it make sense, y'all. Make it make sense, because it sure fucking doesn't to me. And you know what? I said this earlier on Democracy-ish. Ghislaine, fucking dummy. Because the fact that you didn't have it set up for yourself to make sure that if you all were going to go down, that you weren't going to be the one that was going to be taking the rap. That you would either release the information to the public immediately, or at least have a way to try and get yourself out of prison. Out of all of these men who raped, took advantage of young girls that were groomed, that were trafficked, the only person to go to jail is a woman. Ain't that some shit? I think it's wild as hell. I really, really do. And so, to boot, and I guess as a way to distract from all of the death and destruction that he has caused with his little DOGE chainsaw antics, well, guess who's back in the limelight today? And that would be Elon Musk. Elon Musk reacts to Epstein list report, quote, final straw. Elon Musk has said in Axios report that the Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation has concluded there was no evidence of a Jeffrey Epstein client list was, quote, the final straw. The report also said the agencies had concluded there was no credible evidence. The disgraced financier and pedophile blackmailed high-profile and prominent individuals and confirmed that surveillance footage showed Epstein had killed himself in prison. So what does Elon Musk decide to do over the holiday weekend? He has announced New America Party is formed, cementing split from Trump and Republicans. Ooh. Elon Musk says he has formed, whatever that means, his new political party titled the America Party. The former lead of the Department of Government Efficiency has promised to do just that if Trump's bullshit bill passed, which it did, and he signed. Musk has been and continues to be a vocal critic of the policy, arguing that it will cause immense strategic harm, kind of like, oh, the 300,000 deaths that are on his hands from children who relied on the funding and aid from USAID that he went in and gutted so that he could get more government contracts. So Musk, yeah, he's about to spend a whole lot of money to divide the Republican Party. And you know what? Not like I think that, again, we are going to have elections, but I'm absolutely in it for the division of this party. I'm absolutely in it for these fools to go fisticuffs until Donald Trump either throws Elon Musk in alligator Auschwitz or kicks him out of the country. Because that's what's going to happen. And maybe Elon Musk is smart and he's not even in America anymore right now, which would be the smartest move that he could make whilst continuing to fucking stir the pot. By a factor of 2-1, he posted on social media over the weekend, "You want a new political party and you shall have it. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy," he said on his broke-down social media platform on Saturday after Trump signed the bill. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. He had opened up the poll on July 4th, asking his 220 million followers if he should create the new political party. Over 65% of the more than 1.2 million respondents voted yes. Oh, dear God. It is just, all of it. It's a lot. And so while all of this is happening, something else was happening today. And I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because it started happening while I came on air. And it was this. Trump deployed militarized law enforcement agents to Los Angeles MacArthur Park for so-called immigration raids. They were on horseback. They were in full militarized gear, walking in formation into this park where children were playing, people were hiking, walking dogs, doing whatever people do in parks, until Donald Trump's bloated, militarized Gestapo showed up. Midas posted it. Once news started to spread, LA Mayor Karen Bass went down to the park, confronted ICE agents looking for who was in charge. So, like I continue to say, all of this is headed towards an escalation point so that Donald Trump can institute martial law, so that he can say that these areas that he's invading and intimidating and terrorizing, when they push back, that he's going to clamp down. And where will those people go that are arrested? Those, as he says, bad hombres? Maybe they'll go to South Sudan because the Supreme Court in their final session says it was okay. Maybe they'll go to Libya. Maybe they'll go to Alligator Auschwitz. But one thing's for sure is that Donald Trump's plan is unfolding perfectly, and we're only 6 months in. Folks, there is a lot to be done, and thoughts and prayers are not one of them. The people still have power. The people still have the ability to organize and to strike nationally. It is the only thing that is going to shut this fascist regime down, one that is now better funded than any foreign military outside of China. They're ready. The question is, are we? That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I want to thank those of you who offered super thanks and super stickers. David, thank you so much. A. Hamilton, as always, thank you so much. Angela, thank you. Jan, Joanne, thank you so very much for your support. Folks, as I say all the time, this is independent media, and I am supported by all of you. So if you have the ability to offer donations, please consider doing so. If you are watching this on Substack, please subscribe to the Damn Digest and I cannot speak. I am so exhausted. I've been on air for so long today. Consider becoming a paid subscriber if you have the ability to do so. If not, just hit subscribe here on YouTube. Hit like and share this show as soon as it goes up to help the algorithm fairies, because the more that you like, comment, and subscribe, the more this show gets into as many feeds as possible. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I will be back Oh, thank you so much, Star Child. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. I will be back. And thank you, Tony, so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you so very much. I will be back tomorrow, Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. We will also do Town Hall Tuesday then as well. As always, dear friends, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Be well.